this is always a good time of year because when you come to coaching school, you know football's here. And vacation or time off or summer workouts, all that's pretty much over, and we're here. So that's exciting. For us, a couple of exciting things. I mean, it's great that my man Mike Craven and company down here recognized De'Aaron King as the top 40 under 40. I think that was a layup, and they don't miss layups, which is good. I mean, De'Aaron's a stud. So happy and proud to have him on our staff, and I think he's going to continue to be a superstar for years to come, and hopefully in this state, and hopefully with us as long as possible. But De'Aaron's great. Chris Wood's in here. We hired Chris Wood as our director of high school relations. Chris, my relationship with Gus Malzahn gets a lot of coverage, for rightfully so, and he impacted my life in a huge way. The other coach is Chris Wood. And Chris over here was my coach in junior high. He was my coach my senior year in high school, and people like him and Gus are the reason I coach. And so the opportunity to add him to our staff, he's got several decades of coaching experience, mostly in Arkansas, won several state titles, but he did spend a year with Mickey Moss at Austin High as the OC of the Maroons. And so I know he's going to come in and he's going to create great relationships with the coaches in this state and do a good job for us. And then last thing I'll say, and just answer whatever questions you have, we're just excited going into year 4 of our staff and our program, coming off a college football playoff run. And we do have some guys to replace, but I think our staff, as always, has done a great job. We're excited with the staff continuity we had, excited to have who I think is the best quarterback in the state of Texas leading our program, and a great staff. And, we're not expected to do that much anyway, so we're excited to get a chance to prove ourselves all over again.
Mike Raven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football. You mentioned the continuity on the staff. With the transfer portal and roster turnover being so high compared to what it used to be, how important is having some continuity on the staff?
I mean, I think continuity is always huge on your staff, just like it is with your team. You're going to have turnover on staffs and with players now, and to your point. I think one of the reasons we've had a lot less turnover with our players is because of our staff. Our staff has stayed intact, and to have Scott Simons coming back for the 4th year with that entire defensive staff over there, those guys do a fantastic job. Same thing on the offensive side, those guys all returning, and a lot of our support staff. It obviously helps us try to sustain the success we've had and not have to get as many new people up to speed, and I think that bleeds into our players. And so it's hard to ask players to stay committed and stay with you if your staff doesn't. Now, look, everybody, players and staff, always get opportunities sometimes they need to take, and that'll happen forever. And our deal is we want this to be the best job anyone's ever had when they're on our staff at SMU. And then if they do choose to leave, it needs to be just an obvious opportunity to further their career, and we want to celebrate them.
Hey, Coach. John J. Roger from CBS Sports. I'm curious, you mentioned obviously hiring a director of high school relations, of course, and I think that people in this rev share era think NFL-wise, it's more about contracts and players. So what is the role of high school relationships, especially in the state of Texas at this point?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I think it still always comes back to relationships, whether it's coaching a team this year to win this year, whether it's recruiting high school kids, recruiting transfers, keeping the staff intact. We believe it's all about relationships. And so that's what we focus on internally, and I think that's what we focus on externally in this state. We're in Texas. We're at this event because it's the best event in America every year. It's the best run event. It's the best run association. We have the best high school leaders, coaches, and mentors leading and coaching and developing the players that we get to go recruit and pull from. And so that relationship's huge. For us, it's the reason why we have great relationships with coaches. And there's some people say, well, a lot of people go out and hire someone with a lot of deep Texas roots. And we've done that in a lot of places on our staff. But again, I coach because of a relationship I had with a couple coaches who coached me, Chris Wood being one of them. And so to me, if I'm going to say, look, I coach because of the impact my coaches had on me, if I get an opportunity to bring someone who helped me, get to where I am and that I trust and that I know can help SMU further continue this climb we're on, we're going to do it. And it's all about relationships. And so that's where, whether it's Chris, our entire staff, it starts with our relationships with the Texas high school coaches and you guys. And so it's a great question, because at the end of the day, yes, money's involved. It's more transactional than ever before. but there's still a huge relationship component, one, to getting to the point where you can close the deal, or once they're on your team, retaining them. And so that's where we still choose to spend a lot of our time.
Hey, Rhett, Kurt Bowles from the Houston Chronicle. With the tremendous season y'all had last year, can you enumerate some of the specific benefits that's meant to your program, and did you see any benefits coming you didn't even expect?
Yeah, I think last year what it did, it helped. Look, I'd be lying if I didn't say it didn't give us confidence that what we felt, we believed, and thought has been validated for us. So you kind of got to accomplish confidence. We were able to do that, which I think gives our program a lot of confidence coming into year 2 in the ACC. At the same time, I think it helped validate to a lot of other people that, you know, SMU, it is a new day at SMU, and there's never been a better time to come to SMU. And we're in a position where we can compete on the national stage, you know, hopefully year in, year out for the foreseeable future. So it gives you a ton of momentum as you try to sustain success, whether it be in recruiting, whether it be in wins and losses. And so we felt like we had a good team. We felt like our program was trending. You know, we had won 11 games a year before, but, you know, coming into last year, it's, well, yeah, but can you do it in the bigger divisions, right? And now that we've proven we belong there, and in our opinion, still, you know, fell short in some areas we'd like to do better, it's kind of the same deal. Well, yeah, but prove you can do it again. And so I think we're going to consistently be in a prove ourselves situation, but that's actually probably good for us, because usually when you get complacent and you relax, things don't go well. We got our hands full this year, but we're excited about the opportunity to continue to try to sustain the success, and the momentum from last year can only help us in all areas.
Greg Lucas, San Antonio Express News. Coach, we're now a few weeks into the era of revenue sharing here. What have been some of your first impressions, and maybe how it's compared to your expectations?
I think we're too early for me to have a great handle, to be honest with you, because it started on July 1, and honestly, that's when we try to unplug the most. I think the biggest transition for players is they're already on your team, and they're transitioning to actual contracts with universities. That's totally different than contracts with a collective. You know what I mean? And so you go from these small, almost MOU type agreements to an actual long-form contract, like the real world. And so that's a transition that our athletic departments had to go under, players are having to adapt to. Doesn't mean the numbers or whatever that have been agreed to have to change, but there's still, it's a contract. A lot of us in the real world know what contracts look like. It hadn't been that way. So I think that's probably the biggest thing so far. I think the second thing we're all waiting to see is, does the cap really mean anything? You know, we're operating under the fact that it does. So if it does, and if it's something that is upheld, and if it's something that every school is required to adhere to, then I think it could be good in the long run, because I think it'll create enough consistency and guidelines and parameters we haven't had, while still allowing our players to still capitalize greatly financially for what they do, but also maybe do it in a responsible way that helps them for the next 30, 40 years of their life when they're done with this, instead of maybe set unrealistic expectations for them. So I don't know if I have a great answer for you. We're still kind of figuring it out, but hopeful.
Hey, Coach. Dave Wilson from ESPN. Last year, obviously, Kevin Jennings turned out to be a huge find for you guys. You talked about, you know, kind of running across him when you first got the job and saying, what am I missing on this guy? He has the season you have last year. You talk about he's the best returning quarterback. Can you talk about what the sort of like how tough it was to fight off the people that might have been coming? I imagine he was quite in demand.
Yeah, it was tough from the standpoint of he had such a great year, and then when the portal opened, we had just played Clemson, and I think everybody saw, particularly in the second half, but the last 3 quarters of that game, I think it would be hard for anybody to argue he wasn't the best quarterback on the field that night. What he did to lead that comeback was incredible. So in this day and age, that's how it works, right? So that was tough. And it was tough, the timing, because all that was happening when we had a 13-day window to prepare for a playoff game. So that was right, tougher on him than anybody, because he's having to try to juggle the two instead of just enjoy being in the playoffs and trying to go win a national championship with his team. But it really wasn't hard, because he wanted to be at SMU, and he wanted to be in Dallas. And so from the jump, him, his mom and dad, he ain't going nowhere. He wants to be here. And I'm usually a big believer, if two sides want the same thing, then we can figure out a way to make it happen, and that's what we were able to do. So other than being a little bit of a distraction, I don't think there was ever any doubt where he was going to be playing football this year. And he loves Dallas. He wants to get a degree in SMU. He loves his teammates. And I think like us, he believes that there's still more we can do here at SMU.
Coach Isaac Edwards from Texas Football Life. You talk a lot about this convention being awesome and the importance of kids from Texas. Can you talk a little bit about how having such a strong recruiting presence here in Texas has helped y'all transition into the ACC and all that?
It's huge. I mean, location is everything in life a lot. Well, we get a chance to be in the state of Texas, where football is king, and in Dallas, which is one of the hotbeds for recruiting in the whole country, right? Everybody comes to Texas and everybody comes to Dallas to recruit. But it's our home. And so I think that's the biggest thing. Moving to the ACC, having the success we've had, is allowing us to try to capitalize on that and build the program for long-term sustainability the way we want to. Success isn't always exactly linear. You go 11 wins. We want to have more than 11 this year, but maybe you have 7 or 8 or 9. It doesn't mean you're not still climbing and getting better. There's a process to it. I think for us, though, it starts with the relationships with the high school coaches in this state, because why would we go anywhere else if we don't have to? And we don't. And I think you look at our recruiting classes of the last 2 years specifically, once it was announced we were going to the ACC and now that we've been in the ACC. You know, last year I think we signed 18 high school kids. I think 12 were from Texas. I think 8 or 9 were from the Metroplex. I think this year at this point, there are only commitments at this point. We got 21 commitments. 15 are from Texas. 10 are in the top 30 or 40 players in the Dallas Metroplex. So that's the formula for us, but that's everyone else is recruiting, competing for those recruits too. So we have to continue to work hard for that. But I think that's huge, and that's why an event like this is big, because we're a relational program, or a relational staff, and we got to go out and do those things. And this is a great opportunity for us to spend time with, the best of the best, really in the country. But we all happen to be here in Texas, so that's why it's important to us.
You talked about the cap earlier, and I'm curious what your confidence is that colleges will stick to that cap, and how much that is incumbent upon the coaches across the country to adhere to it. And then secondly, how do you go about splitting up that cap? Do you look at the NFL model? Like, how did y'all go about figuring out how to use that money?
Good, big question. I have 100% confidence that people will circumvent the cap and break rules, because they've been doing it for decades, even when there wasn't a cap. So, recruiting is recruiting. Forever there was, this is how it is, and then certain people decided if and when they want to bend the rules, and if they don't get caught, they don't get caught. Like, that's not ever been not the case. It's not going to change. I think what we all want is some consistency with, here are the rules, and we are at least going to have structure to require people to abide by the rules, and if they don't, then there's penalties. It's that simple. So I don't know. I'm confident there's going to be plenty of people that are going to test the limits. Fine. It's, if they do, what are the repercussions to make sure there's structure to our great game? It's like anything else. You got to have some guidelines and structures. Even if you have a lot of free market world out here, we got to have some rules for us to have a league and have consistency. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. I think the biggest question is, how will it be enforced? Will it be a hard line on, no, this is what an NIL deal is, or a hard line on, no, this is the cap. You have to stay within the cap, and if you don't, here are the penalties. If it is, then I think we have a good system, or at least an improving system. With regards to how we do the cap internally, I think everyone's different. I think our school is great. We're choosing to maximize the cap for all athletics, and which also for football. And if you maximize the cap based on the percentages, you're somewhere in that 13 to 16 range for football. So you may not be the highest, but you're in the range, right? And so how you choose to use that is then where the strategy comes in, if everybody's buying into that. So it's year one. We're going to learn. We think we have an idea, like by position, hey, this is how much we want to allocate for these positions. At the same time, I think anyone would tell you, if you have a chance to make your team better, you're going to try to find ways to do that, and that may maybe put more over here and less over here that year. And so I think having a plan and having a system internally is important, but then also having the flexibility to change with the times, learn as you go, and then maybe as certain situations arise, make decisions you need to do what's best for your program and your team right now. That flexibility, I think, is important. So we don't have just like a hard line, this is how we do it, but we do have a plan. And whether it's J.R. Sandlin and our entire team over there in personnel, we talk about it constantly, because it's ever changing, right? And so, but I think we're in a good place, at least as of today.